So this video, we're going to be talking about kind of the first steps of, let's say that you get a call to go work on a site. Let's say that you get a job opportunity to work at a site. Let's say that you are overseeing some of the IT operations one way or another. Before I walk onto a site, I'm going to probably do some research, find out, what kind of company I'm dealing with. So before I even step foot on the grounds, I'm probably already going to know a pretty good deal about the company, whether this be from asking questions over the phone. I ask a lot of questions, and that's never been a bad thing for me. I always find that when you are asking less than sufficient amounts of questions, that's when you're going to get surprises. And when you're trying to build infrastructure or anything that's going to be a turnkey operation, you don't want surprises. So, and I look at absolutely everything. So let's say I've already done a good deal of due diligence on what kind of company I'm dealing with, how many employees on average, how long it's been in business, maybe get an idea of what the turnover is, maybe look at Indeed, see, some other sites, see what employees are saying about the site. Because of course I'm going to want to see if one of the employees is saying, oh, the equipment doesn't work well, the IT is terrible, any of this information is going to, whether it's bad or good, is going to help me out. Okay. But let's say that's all done. Even when I put my first step in the door, I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at, because one of the big things is budget. Okay. So I'm going to look at what the floor is made out of. I'm going to look at what kind of chairs they have. I'm going to look at what, whether the windows are single pane or double pane. I'm going to be looking at everything. I'm going to look at whether or not the people who really do make the decisions at this company are interested in investing in this, in the infrastructure of this company, or if they're just simply not. There's different owners. You're going to find people who really do like reinvesting. You'll also find people who used to really like reinvesting, but they just found that it wasn't worth it. And there's all kinds of different reasons. That doesn't mean it's not worth it. It maybe means that sometime in history for them, with the people they had in the situation that they were in at the time, it wasn't worth it. And they're not back to that point of reinvesting into the company to get the payout of what reinvesting gives you. And is it the IT person's position when they get on site to do this? No, it's not. If you're simply there to do IT, then this, for one, nothing I say is really going to help you. What I do is I look at absolutely every single thing that I can be a part of. That's not me doing somebody else's job, but I just give a lot of consideration. So let's say with that same example, I'm walking onto a site. I see it's not very well taken care of. They've called me to kind of assess or consult, or maybe even get my hands dirty on some stuff, which I don't mind doing at all. If I see that everything else looks bad or less than what I think the place should be, then I just know that it may be a little difficult to get them to spend money, not on me, but on themselves, on their employees. If you're a good IT person, you're going to make your money one way or the other. If you offer good services, it's really not about that. You're going to get paid. So your goal shouldn't be to try and siphon out what you can based on this information. It should be more, what can I accomplish here? How difficult is it going to be accomplishing what I'm setting after, which is the best IT environment that the owners are willing to put in. Okay. And every single thing is going to give you an idea of this. So we'll keep going down the list. I have written a little list. It's not complete. So the other thing that I look at, if they allow me to walk around and talk to people, which is something that I very much do want to do, is I'll kind of try and get the idea of what the relationship is between maybe if there's already an IT department or any IT operations, sometimes it's, they'll have like somebody else do a little bit of the IT, like, Bob is the accountant, but maybe, there's some overlap with IT and accounting. Maybe Bob used to do some IT and now he just kind of tries to keep things going and stuff like that. So whatever the case is, I'm going to try and figure out what the relationship between the IT department and the rest of the departments are. So that way I can better understand what kind of situation I'm walking into. Do these people already not care about anything that I'm going to have to say because the IT that was before me didn't care about them? This is going to be a big deal. And most of the things I've mentioned so far are situations where you have to either gain somebody's trust, convince somebody that putting not necessarily a hard investment, but putting an emphasis on building up the root layers of your business, which IT is a root layer in its essence, just like maintenance, just like the bills that come in for the lighting. Okay. I don't put myself up on some huge pedestal. We're trying to keep people working as efficiently as possible with as little downtime and speed and accuracy. We're looking for all these things. A perfect environment would be IT equipment that never stops doing what it's supposed to do. And everybody has sufficient enough systems to do what they need to do. That's what we're after. Simple. Okay. But when you first come onto a site, there may be a lot of roadblocks that really hinder you getting there and really hinder the owners getting there. And there may be even management that pushes back in different departments saying, oh yeah, we tried that. We don't really want to do that. And tried that could be just upgrading their desktop computers or laptops or whatever. And they didn't see a benefit from it. And then I have to go find out what that whole situation is. So a lot of times when you're walking on these sites, there's a lot of historical, stuff. This is the stuff that I like. I really don't like walking into brand new buildings. Excuse me. I really don't like walking into brand new buildings and them saying, okay, we want Cat 5 in every room, or we want fiber in every room, whatever. We want, because those are just initial plans. Those are just subcontractors usually in those. I'm just not interested. If that's your bag, great. There's no shortage of work for that. So anyways, going on to the relationship between the departments, there's a lot of ironing out when you first go into sites if you're really looking to assess the situation. Because what I'm talking about with sites with a lot of history, there's a big difference between a brand new site, which gets whatever the turnkey operation is at the time, whether it's 2007, 2017, or whatever it's going to be in 2027. Okay, there's kind of a turnkey approach that most IT people have that kind of gets the ball rolling well. But when you walk into a site with a lot of history, you don't really get those options. The walls aren't opened up. There's infrastructure already there, and you got to figure out how to navigate that, how to navigate the potentially bad history that's been there, and prop it up to a way where they're competitive with other companies in this field. And that's not always easy to get there with. Okay. So the other thing, if they don't have any IT presence there and they're looking, say, for me to be the main IT guy, I typically will recommend against that. You don't want to sit there and pay me, whatever you think you're going to get away with paying me for running a site. It's not a good idea. The best thing is to, one option, I guess, would be to let me find somebody for you who may be just part-time and maybe can do something else as well. Maybe it can help Bob in accounting. Maybe Bob's been slammed. Maybe Bob would like some help. Probably would. Most of the time, any situation where I've seen somebody doing, they got roped into doing some of the IT, they can't wait to get out of it. And I know that if I can get them out of it, it's going to help me, it's going to help them, and it's going to help the company, because that's just how it works. You're going to keep stressing out the people there that don't care about doing IT. They're just doing it for whatever. Get somebody that's part-time, somebody right out of high school that just is obsessed about technology but hasn't had their foot in the door to really see an environment, and let somebody like me train them and bring them on board. And, you know, they may turn into a company person. They may be a lifer. You never know. They may go on to do better things, but you'll get 5 really good years out of them and get a much better environment. These are all positives from negatives. This is what you're there to do. Is that going to cost more money? Depends how you look at it. You called me. I cost more money. What if I'm not there and somebody else is there and they do a good job? And I've left them there and they're not tied to me. They're yours. Okay. If they do have an IT department, okay, this is kind of where it gets over to the consultant side of it, because some companies they'll have an IT department, but they're really not sure if that IT department is running the way that it should. My biggest pet peeve that I still have today is the separation in understanding between IT's responsibilities and the people that they report to. A lot of the times IT will report to accounting, again, because there is historically significant overlap between accounting and IT. They're both very finite and detailed, and they understand each other for the most part. Some accountants don't care. Some accountants really like what IT does. It just depends. But as far as the options go between the departments that a company usually has, accounting usually has the majority of the overlap. So it doesn't give it a perfect score per se, but it's what they have. So a company may be in a situation again where they're just not sure, could be the owner. So like, you know, let's say we have, you know, 5 IT people, and I'm not really sure that we need 5 IT people. Jason, can you like just kind of take a look at what our workload is, what our needs are, what we have, and kind of reformat it to where we need to be. Now, one thing I definitely don't like doing is taking jobs away. So if I get onto a site and I see that there's 5 people, there absolutely doesn't need to be 5 people. My questions then are going to be like, what does the company look like in 5 years? Are you currently in a growth period? Are you looking to expand? Are you just looking to just do the same old thing until you retire or until you sell the company? Right? Hopefully their answer is, well, we want to grow, because companies should be growing. And if you're not, then that's a different story. And that's one I'm not going to get into or give my 2 cents on, because it really has nothing to do with me. Unless, I don't know, let's say I really see a huge opportunity with this IT team somehow, then I'm maybe going to say something. But let's say that they're for growth, okay? But I know that even though they're for growth, they still don't need these 5 people. So let's say I get in a situation where I can assess these 5 people in a sense. I'm going to try and find out what they're capable of. If they are capable IT people, okay, they're probably bored, which is perfect, because an IT department can be one of 2 or both. It can be kind of like a maintenance, like keep the ball rolling, or it can be more of like an R&D type department. I found myself being bored and then coming up with things that the other staff just hasn't thought of. A report that shows data in a way that they weren't thinking of showing that data. Because I know the databases. I know what's in the databases. I know what can be pulled out of the databases. I know how it can be pulled out. And you have to learn kind of some of the departments to do this, right? If I'm a consultant, I'm not going to know that. If there's 5 IT people on that site, they might know that, okay? And this is probably going to be the conversation I have with whatever their IT manager is. And there's a very good possibility that their IT manager is very good and can answer all of these questions and is on board with letting IT kind of not really become a front runner for growth, but certainly not a hindrance, like an absolute part of the growth that they're looking to see. Now, let's say that it's a company that isn't really interested. Let's say that they're interested in growth, but they only have 1 or 2 IT people. That is a little bit more difficult, because if you've got 1 or 2 IT people and they are the kind of IT people that don't really have and ambition. They're just interested in coming in Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day, the occasional server reboot on the weekend or upgrade or whatever. They may not be interested in finding the low-hanging fruit in data analytics or hardware or speed or anything or processes that are going to allow people to grow the company easier without as many roadblocks. They just may not be these people. And this is when I have to bring bad news to whoever called me in the first place, which I don't want to do. But then on the same token, I can say, well, this is a mindset. And sometimes I can get people in this mindset and sometimes I can't. In my opinion, this mindset is very easy to find. You either want to find the cracks or you don't want to find the cracks. It really just depends. You can train that, but if you can't get yourself to think like that, then there's really nothing that I can do. It takes a certain person. When I hire, these are the people that I look for. I don't care about your college. I don't care about, I'm sorry. I don't care. When I'm talking to you, if I don't think that you've got some sort of dynamic overview of potential for what things that are in front of you can be versus what they already are, I'm really not that interested. Now, let's see, what else can we talk about? There's a million things that go into looking at a company and their IT environment. This is going to be a short list. Of course, you're going to be walking around looking at hardware. That's one of the real basic things for people like me who might be a consultant or somebody who sets their foot into an environment to kind of give their 2 cents. You're going to be looking around at the infrastructure a lot. Now, a lot of third-party IT companies, this is kind of like there's third-party IT companies that have things that are called like their bread and butter, the things that they make money on no matter what. And the infrastructure, when they walk around and they can point at it and they can show it to the owner or whoever called them and say that is bad, then those people will also see it. When there's a visual thing, if you start talking about like database reconfigurations or purging or anything like that, it's harder to explain that. So for third-party IT companies, the low-hanging fruit is going to be a lot of the infrastructure. Are there wires hanging around? Are there wires not plugged into things? On the switches that you see around, are there lights on all of the ports that the wires are plugged into? If there's not, why? Where are those wires going? Because just the wires alone gets a lot of billable hours. When it doesn't really matter. I don't think like that. I look at a port that has a wire in it on a switch without a light as a positive because it's already ran. I don't need to go find out. It's not the low-hanging fruit for me. That's not where the time and consideration should be spent. That's just if you want to go make money. Sorry. And if you disagree with me on that, then keep doing that. So wires are easy. Some of the things that I'll look for, though, which is more culture type things, which really make a big difference when it comes to if you're looking to grow a company and make a company better. Let's say that there is kind of a duality in the company. Let's say that there's the fancy offices and maybe the less fancy offices. Maybe there's 2 buildings or something like that. And you notice in the less fancy offices, you have those old like Dell square monitors. They could have 2, but they're the old square monitors. But then in the nicer offices, they have the nicer stuff. They have the newer keyboards. They have the newer stuff. And they may have a reason for that. Those may be the more prominent people, the more higher paid, the people who spend more time in the company, sure. But hardware isn't that expensive. If you have an IT consultant coming around going, oh man, it's to upgrade all these people is going to be so much. It's not. It depends on what your idea of so much is. So you can go spend $300, $400 on a monitor, or you can go spend $150 and get a 27-inch benq monitor right now. That's a good LED flat panel monitor that is good color, good contrast. Okay. It doesn't take much to upgrade them. The keyboards. Okay. And I usually like to look at longevity. I do like mechanicals that are non-clicky, non-tactile responsive, smooth. as little noise as possible, but mechanicals last longer. Quick story, a company I used to work for, an employee spilled coffee on their mechanical 3 separate times, and they're still using it to this day, as far as I know. They were using it for years. They just last longer. Are you going to spend twice as much for a mechanical? Yes. Are the employees that are currently using trashy $10 HP or whatever keyboards in the less than ideal building going to be significantly happier and feel more appreciated if they're given mechanical keyboards? I mean, they're not going to jump off, they're not going to jump from their seat, but this kind of consideration over time really does make a difference. And especially if you're hired in as like a consultant, you don't have to take the credit for this. You can pitch the idea and you can give it to the owner or whoever called you to say, yeah, this was our idea. We think that this was, wrong. We want to kind of level the playing field with hardware across the board so that everybody feels somewhat equal. You may look at this as some kind of like a socialistic type mentality, and maybe it is, but most environments that I've seen, if you've got employees that have trashier equipment, like significantly trashier equipment, then the other people, you have this separation. And when you have this separation, you have this. And you don't want that when you're growing. You want everything to be coursed together, as tightly knitted as you can. And you'd be surprised how much a difference in your workstation compared to others either pulls in people or separates people. It's a subconscious type thing, but it is true. You're going to look for physical Wi-Fi access points. You're going to look for visible surveillance. You're going to take note of all these. Any piece of hardware that you see, there's always going to be a consideration with hardware. Even the doors. I'll look at the doors. Are the frames torn up? Is the door super old? Do they have keycard access? Do they have any kind of door sensors on them at all? Do they need them? Do they care? Like this all matters. This is going to give you an idea of what they're shooting for. They may have considered that. They may have really gone down a long road of looking at some sort of security with sensors or keycard access, and they had a really good reason not to do that. That reason may be also the reason why they can't do something else, and you're going to know that if you're asking that question. You kind of get the answers that you're looking for from different questions a lot of the times, because sorry to say, that's going to drop their guard. They may not have upgraded everybody else's computers like the nice offices for the same reason that they didn't upgrade the doors. You'd be surprised. They just might not. But they may not want to talk about the monitor reason, but you'll get it from a different question. So that's why asking questions is always good. That does seem a little manipulative, but here's the thing. If you're just trying to get a really good understanding and you're asking questions, these little nuggets are going to come, whether you like it or not, whether you think it's manipulative or not. And you may also be thinking, oh, dude, you're way overthinking this. You don't need to do all this. That's your opinion. I've set up, I don't know how many environments, and they've all been successful because I show a real genuine interest to make sure that they're successful and that everybody feels that they're successful, not just the people that called me. IT footprint. Another thing, they may call, this has happened. You may get on a site and there's really not much of an IT setup there. It may be like they don't have any wires. They have a very small server room. Okay. They may all just be using laptops with Wi-Fi. They may not have, it may just be a really relaxed, laid back type atmosphere. So for a third party IT, they want to get paid for their time. They're going to try and find something. So they're probably going to look at, well, what remote support agents do you have on all of these systems? There's a lot of them. For the people that are watching, a real basic one would be like TeamViewer, okay, for remote support. But there's significantly better ones that will manage an entire site for very low cost, and also won't slow any of the systems down, and are very useful, ones that have ticketing systems. And it just depends on how far the company wants to go. There's certainly been times where I've walked into an environment and I say, you really don't need much. You're good. You're not looking to grow. You have everything you need. You're doing good. You're efficient. This is set up the way that it should be. Does that help me? No. I mean, it does, because they may refer me. They may appreciate the honesty. I appreciate the honesty from myself. That's why I do it. It's also to be honest to other people, but I sleep better at night. So, side note, I've never, ever, ever seen another third-party IT person come in and say, you're doing good. I've never seen it, because usually what they do is they have this software that they use to scan the entire network. This allows them to use automation to their benefit. Software is out there. It will tell you where security holes are in the network and the switching, the patching of operating systems, latency in network connectivities, all kinds of things. And they'll run this and they'll get a report back. But the report is a lot like when you take your car to some, more franchised mechanic shop or tire shop, and the technician out there has been trained to do it how the franchise wants, which means they take a battery tester, they take a coolant tester, they take all these little testers that the company has given them to read things out. And these are all money makers. Can a coolant tester test and see if your coolant is needing to be cycled? Yes. Will they come back and tell you that it's not imminent right now? Yeah, it depends. Okay. So that software, the report that will come back, will look bad almost every time. Those reports aren't meant to tell you that you're doing a good job. They're meant to tell you that you're not doing a good job, and that you need this third-party IT company to come in and fix all of these things, or it's detrimental. I don't agree with this practice. I never have. Just as a side note, if you walk into a place and you see the Wi-Fi password written on a whiteboard right when you walk in, because the people there are sick of telling others what the password is, just as an example, ask them if that's the guest Wi-Fi password. And if they go, guest Wi-Fi password, have them erase that password immediately and then have that conversation. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there is typically, if you walk into a company, you should see 2 to 4 different SSIDs, which means different Wi-Fi names that you can connect to. If they don't have a guest network, then you'll usually just see, let's say it's Bob's Pizza. I've never consulted for Bob's Pizza, but let's say that it is. You'll see Bob's Pizza 2.4 and Bob's Pizza 5 gigahertz. You got one for computers and one for mobiles. But there should be a guest network too that is virtually or even physically separated from the main network. This is a security practice. Of course, I can pull up to the building and I can throw up the Wi-Fi on my phone and see what connections I'm getting, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a guest. Okay, it just means that maybe the guest is down right now. They may say, oh yeah, that is the guest, but I'll find out whether that's all true later on. Let's see. I mean, this kind of matters. This is the last thing on the list. This kind of matters. It kind of doesn't. It depends. There's a lot of variables to this. Is the staff typically younger or older? Okay. This is just frame of mind, if you will. Older typically doesn't care about new stuff. Older cares typically about function. So if you want to connect to a client or a set of clients, right? Or a client that has, let's say the client and its employees are all about the same age, right? and they're older meaning somewhere between 40 and even 70. Hopefully they're not working at that age, but some people just can't let it go, you know. They really care about function. The majority of the time they care about function. They don't care if it looks pretty. They don't care if it makes a cool LED light. They don't care about that stuff. They care about function. They may not even care about comfortability. They just care about function. Now, if it's a younger crowd, say 30 and under, they're going to care about function, but they're also going to be a little bit more playful about their work environment, typically. So that kind of scales you to where the pockets are of hardware that you can recommend that they may like. And this could go a million different ways. It could be a younger crowd that you kind of sell them on the idea that, okay, you're looking for this big upgrade, but you've got a small budget. Typically, you want stuff that's been tried and proven, that's on the function side of things. It just depends. I've worked with people that really have to have an RGB keyboard, and it bugs the crap out of me. You don't need an RGB keyboard to do your work. You don't need it. But RGB keyboard is really not that much more. And if it's like one person and that makes their day that much better, my recommendation is usually just give them the keyboard. If it bothers the people that are around them, deal with it at that point. Because you can recycle that keyboard somewhere else. It's usually a keyboard that you can turn the lights off on anyways. You give it to a person that's older, they never turn the lights on. It's a good keyboard, it works, you're done. Okay, so we had to end that a little quick because there was a door knock and obviously some time has passed. So, you know, I know that the video ended with a keyboard, really not, you know, the biggest concern with walking onto a site. However, the reason that I was getting into that, and probably what I would have continued with saying, is that every little thing matters, all the way down to a little light on a keystroke. If you are a consultant and you've been a part of this kind of situation, then you know what I'm talking about. The mental continuity with people throughout each day with their hardware matters. I have specific hardware that I like to use. This is going to be kind of a balancing act in the company, because what you're shooting for as a consultant is you're shooting for everything to be turnkey. So, for example, all Dell docking stations, all Dell towers, all Dell keyboards, so on and so forth. At least the docking stations and the laptops, because that way they can like change offices, or you can swap parts or anything like that. Or maybe you have a rep at Dell that gives you a good deal if you only use Dell, stuff like that. But keyboards aren't in that realm as much. Same with mice and stuff like that. And as long as it's a good monitor and it's a good computer, most people don't care. And Dell does a pretty good job. HP does a pretty good job. Lenovo used to do. I don't see a lot of sites that really have Lenovo. Anyways, I think that's probably enough. That was about 30 minutes of going over some titty-tat stuff about walking onto a site. And that's maybe 10% of it. And that's only because every site is different. So I like working with scenarios. I love situations with as many different variables as they can possibly throw into it to try and consolidate down to a point that everyone likes. This is the goal, no matter which site you're walking onto. And if you're fortunate enough to be in this position, it's a lot of fun. Sometimes people just need something fixed. You get there, you fix it, you're done, bye. That's fine. That keeps the lights on. But the big consulting things, the owners who are really looking to maybe do a sort of a revamp or get a big step forward, like these are fun. These are a lot of fun. And they're not common. They're fairly far and few in between, but I've been a part of quite a few of them. And that's why my expertise are in this area. And that's why I have so much to talk about. And that's why I look for them, because it's challenging. And when you get it, when you get a site operating just as well as another site that has a completely different schematic of operation, it's great. So anyways, yeah, I'll see you in the next video.